Thank you. Initially, we had the item of the 2023-2024 forecast and budget update with Director Cochran, but she is unable to attend tonight. So since we received the PowerPoint this afternoon, I suggested that we just have council members email in their questions related to that, and it will get discussed at the November 28th presentation. And in light of that, we are moving on to our next item, which is the status update on the Transportation Master Plan. Director Carol Helland of Planning and Community Development will introduce the item.
Thank you, Councilmember Forsyth, and good evening, council members. Tonight, I'm joined by Vanjie Garcia, Josh Mueller, Francesca Liberti, and Kim Keeling, and from the Transportation Planning and Engineering Division. There will be providing you with an update on the Transportation Master Plan and associated efforts. And updates tonight will include a brief discussion of the local road safety plan outcomes that were introduced to you at 2PW on November 6th. And tonight we hope to get council's feedback on project prioritization as we move forward with completion of the local road safety plan by the end of the year. In addition, staff will give updates on the progress on the Redmond Bicycle Design Manual and current state technology assessment. And this study session will also introduce the Transportation Facilities Plan, which is being updated as part of the capital facilities element of the comprehensive plan, part of Redmond 2050. So finally, staff will describe next steps to implement the adopted downtown parking management strategic plan with changes that are beginning in January of 2024. As you can see, staff has been really busy. So with that, I'm going to hand the microphone to Vanjie.
Good evening, Council. I'm adjusting so you can hear me. So thank you for welcoming us today. We have, again, a lot to cover. So I'm going to ground the conversation. So I hope you had plenty to look over for the last week. But I'd like to remind you all that this is the third study session on this topic. The first study session was that the Transportation Master Plan is being updated. The change is driven with a comprehensive plan. There's been a lot of conversation. So that first study session was to separate the conversation. We had the transportation element in the comprehensive plan. So now we're talking about the Transportation Master Plan. That second study session was a little bit more of the elements that will be a lot of the separate pieces of work that we're going to be doing. So in the next slide, the agenda today, we're going to be going over the local road safety plan, our bicycle design guide update that we introduced the last time. We will give an overview of the summary of that happened with the transportation technology current state assessment, and give a little bit of what's going to happen when we talk about the transportation facilities plan, which is going to be adopted as part of the comprehensive plan. And a few years ago, you might remember that we had a downtown parking management strategic plan implementation. That's a lot of words, but that's what we're going to be covering today. But the big star will be the local road safety plan. Next slide. So you might remember this slide is what we call our honeycomb slide. The honeycomb shapes that highlighted in yellow is what we will be talking about today and what we're currently working on. Next slide. Just to remind you that from the comprehensive plan public engagement process, the guiding principles are safety, equity, inclusion, sustainability, technology forward, resilience, and our transportation strategies are on the right side. All the work that we're doing will be aligned with these strategies. Next slide. Now, Francesca will begin the presentation.
All right, so tonight we'll be reviewing the local road safety plan, the bicycle design guide update, transportation technology assessment, and transportation facilities plan, as well as the downtown parking management strategic plan implementation. As you can see here, this is a schedule of all of the things we've had in progress. So we'll be going over the ones that are highlighted at that "We Are Here" spot. I'll also highlight that the SS4A Safer Streets for All action plan, which is kind of in conjunction with the local road safety plan, is next on our list and just getting started soon. So that as well as the ADA transition plan, pedestrian system plan, as you see up here, are all items that we are moving forward and we'll be working on going into 2024. So as you've heard at prior council updates, these are the essential steps of our local road safety plan. So first, we evaluate statistical and spatial trends from prior 5-year crash history. We identify risk factors specific to specific patterns in Redmond. This plan identifies 6 key risk factors. Then, based on each of those risk factors, we've determined appropriate countermeasures for each one that are really specific to those locations in Redmond where we are seeing those safety risks. And then finally, we develop projects that are based on these countermeasures and then prioritize these projects or programs that come out of that local road safety plan. This may look familiar to you. This is a table of our risk factors and countermeasures that have been identified in the local road safety plan. I'll just kind of quickly review these, but what I really want to do is focus on our projects that are coming from these risk factors and countermeasures that we've developed. You heard at 2PW from our consultant, Brett, who kind of delved into those maps and project sheets. And so we'll be reviewing those today as well, and hoping for your feedback on, prioritization and what you see as, while all of these are important, what you see as the most, vital and high priority of these projects. So here is a summary of each of the projects that are presented in the local road safety plan. Each project is shown in these boxes on the right, and then the risk factors that are addressed by each project are shown by these fun symbols. So you can see how many risk factors are addressed by each different project. So I'll provide a brief review, and then, as I mentioned, we'll want to hear from you about your thoughts on priorities. So our high visibility crosswalk markings, these promote the visibility of the crosswalk itself as well as those who are in it. So making sure that pedestrian crossings are very, visible and important in the landscape of the roadway network. Signalized crosswalk modifications, these would be changes to signal operations or timing that would allow for additional time for pedestrians and bicycles to cross the intersection. These could also include electronic signage that would restrict turns or alert drivers to the presence of pedestrians and bicyclists. And then these also incorporate ADA upgrades. The high friction surface treatment program. These are treatments that add friction to the roadway surface that allow drivers to become more aware of intersections or bicycle facilities as they're driving, and also help encouraging slower speeds and just better driver awareness. Bike lane protection, this program would provide additional physical barriers that would protect bike lanes without impacting roadway operations or driveway access, and in turn would also encourage lower speeds. Then bike lane relocation. This program, you might remember Brett mentioning, is specific to Avondale Way and Redmond Way. We would not recommend purely just striped bike lanes on these roadways because of the high speeds along both of those, major arterials in the city. And so this would be a larger scale project that would relocate the curb and place bike lanes behind the curb. So this would provide that added separation and comfort for bicycles, and in addition would provide for traffic calming, again, to encourage lower vehicle speeds. Then the signalized corridors, so this is the divided highway intersection program that's focused on 35 or over mile-an-hour roadways. These, as you might remember from the maps that were shown and are included in one of the attachment D, I believe, or those are would be improvements along 148th and Avondale, and those locations were identified based on trends in our crash data. So this, again, would include traffic calming measures such as narrowing lane widths, adding curb extensions, and, again, adjusting signal timing to hopefully reduce congestion, to allow signals to be more coordinated with one another and help vehicles move through those corridors more efficiently. So then the additional pedestrian crossings at high-demand locations, this program, this shows a strong correlation between transit routes and where active mode crashes are happening. So in attachment D of your packet are those maps that were presented to you at 2PW. Map 21 is really the key to this program. So that shows where those transit routes in Redmond overlap with active mode crashes. And those showed quite a significant pattern. So we would really, with this program, we'd want to focus on recommending new crossings where there's transit-related demand specifically, and look at look away from, where there's transit-related demand and add high-comfort crossing locations. So making sure we're looking at places that are not currently comfortable for pedestrians, that also are along transit routes, and then adding crossings that make those areas more comfortable for folks that aren't in a vehicle. Then finally, we have our citywide speed limit study and automated speed enforcement programs. These are two potential programs that would reduce speeds. They'd be focused mainly near schools and parks where there's high pedestrian activity. And these, I would like to highlight again, are just potential programs, and they would need to be implemented along with roadway changes. So we would not want to just solely, reevaluate speed limits in the citywide without also looking at traffic calming measures that would, ensure that drivers are driving at those reduced speeds. And so all of these projects are really important and will improve safety in Redmond. And we have internal policies and procedures to implement these once the plan is finalized. These maps that you see and these project sheets, they're really identify representative locations, but these locations can change, and that's also what we'd like to hear from you. If you find these representative locations useful, or what you find to be most important from these. And really our goal is to gather your feedback today so that we can finalize this plan by the end of the year with the hopes of applying for safety grants in January. That really is our ultimate goal with this plan, moving it forward so that we can look for that grant funding in the new year.
And before we move on, one thing to also think about is as we know that we come to council to ask for permission to apply for a grant, so something that we would like to hear from you are kind of a mix and match, so we're looking to hear. This is a really good graphic that Francesca created of and we provided a whole bunch of attachments that, so there's a lot of technical information. So when we come back with a grant application, because there's a maximum amount of dollars for a grant ask. So we will, staff will come for the best case grant, candidate for a grant. So we will come back to you with, because we can, look for it's not just one square on this slide. So we're just looking for feedback from everyone at this point. And we can stop now and go through the rest of the slides so we can leave more discussion for later.
Okay. Do you want me to keep going then? Yeah. Okay, got it. Okay, so then with that, I'll move on to an update of our bicycle design guide. So this slide and this graphic may look familiar to you. This is a refresher of what we'd like to do with our bicycle design guide, which is incorporate level of traffic stress. That's our key change to the bicycle design guide in this update. And This update will help the bicycle design guide become more integrated and more consistent with other city codes and guiding documents. And then again, this will incorporate that level of traffic stress, which, as we've discussed, it measures the level of comfort for bicyclists in a given facility based on the facility design as well as the surrounding environment. So what we're hoping with this update is that Redmond bicyclists and others can use this level of traffic stress, the tables and charts that we include in this manual, to really help them decide which existing bicycle facilities are right for their comfort and skill level. And then we also hope that this manual can be a tool for staff to help determine which facility type or which improvement would meet a desired level of traffic stress for future planned bicycle facilities or safety improvements. So these graphics are new. You have not yet seen these. The graphic on the left here shows an example of kind of the look and feel of what the updated bicycle facility graphics will look like in the manual. There's quite a few of these that are included in our manual, and they're very detailed. And then this chart on the right came from your previous feedback to see local examples at each level of traffic stress. So these are all photos of different bicycle facilities in Redmond that currently exist, and they're grouped by level of traffic stress as well as by facility type. So you'll see that there are some blank spaces in the chart. That these show where there are not current locations or current existing facilities that meet this type or level of traffic stress. But that doesn't mean that there wouldn't be a facility of this type in the future, and that's what we're hoping to do with this bicycle design manual. So that's what kind of the key of this bicycle design guide is, that we're hoping to determine what types of new facilities that we'd like to build and where they'll be. And then also, so the manual will also include more detailed tables that will accompany these figures that will help determine, how to evaluate level of traffic stress and how to evaluate Redmond's current bicycle network. All right, with that, I'll pass it over to Josh.
All right, I got the next slide here. I just want to brief you. We had a briefing on this earlier and just kind of update on where we are with our transportation technology current state assessment and kind of next steps on that. The purpose of the transportation technology current state assessment was to develop that as-is current state of existing transportation technologies for the city of Redmond. Technology forward focus is, a light concept in our current Redmond 2030 transportation plan. If you do a quick search of the current document, the word technology only comes up 20 times, and the majority of those times it's in context to the technology firms that are situated in the city limits of Redmond. So there are some scattered mentions of traffic operations technologies, vehicle safety and emission reduction technologies, and those really tie to our performance measures of the TMP. So we have an opportunity with the update for our transportation master plan to really focus the framework of technology visioning for the city of Redmond. Let's see. With updated strategies from Redmond 2050 and guiding principles for transportation, with the strategies, again, it's important to have this reassessment. Transportation technology can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people and different individuals and groups. And so, we really made a big effort here at the city to define what transportation systems are at the city. So we had 33 staff members participate in surveys, and then we developed focused interview groups. The participants came from across public works, our traffic operations, our maintenance and operations staff, planning and community develop. A big part of this was through our technology and information TIS group, as they're centrally important to a lot of many of the transportation systems that we currently use, and then also our parks department. We set out to identify our current transportation systems, look at capabilities of the existing systems and our organization, processes, and services. We look to identify potential gaps in our capabilities of our existing systems and services. Looked at potential gaps in maybe data or data architecture that we have. And identify any maybe required or missing technology systems or capabilities that the city doesn't currently have as compared to industry standards. With that, we were provided a staff report from our consultant, and this will serve as kind of our baseline against how we'll, develop the next scope of work here. They provided some early recommendations to start a framework for future conversation with the council that will be looking to move forward next year. So next steps on this is transportation planning and engineering staff will start working with our TMP core team to develop a scope of work starting next year to include council in development of that technology visioning with the update for the TMP. All right, and then I think I got the next one here, and this one's going to be a little bit more in the near term. And so the transportation facilities plan will be coming to the city council in late Q1 with Redmond 2050 and the transportation element. The TFP, the transportation facilities is called the TFP. The TFP is the city's plan-based concurrency system that is consistent with Washington State Growth Management Act. The TFP defines sufficient capacity for the Redmond 2050 land use as required by the state law. It helps determine whether projects are constructed concurrently with the planned land use. The TFP is a list of projects. It's not the entirety of the projects that are provided in the master plan. Those are called the build-out. The TFP projects are a long-range, fiscally constrained portion of the build-out plan that includes defined system improvement projects that provide a complete and well-maintained transportation system. And I'll explain a little bit more on what system improvement projects are. An amendment to the TFP was done through a comprehensive plan update in 2017 due to funding opportunities that became available to the city through private developers. Projects were moved from the build-out plan at that time to the TFP list. Again, the current TFP list is nearing completion. And funding of projects through development agreements are already in place for projects to construct projects that can be included on this next round of the TFP. So this is why the TFP will be brought forward starting with the Planning Commission and then to the City Council with Redmond 2050's transportation element. And we'll look for adoption with the comprehensive plan late next year, and then will be incorporated with the final adoption of the transportation master plan at a later date. Included with those proposed TFP projects that'll be provided, we'll also have a discussion on future impact fee, transportation impact fee calculations. We will schedule to meet with the council and our consultant that is working on future impact fees with the planned growth scenarios of Redmond 2050. Since the TFP is the financially constrained portion of the TMP, it's closely tied to how impact fees are calculated. So that's why that is important. Also, impact fee credits for developers can only be applied for projects that are on the TFP list as they construct new system improvements for the city. They can apply for these impact fee credits. There's also a major update on what can be defined as a system improvement. Earlier this year, the city of Redmond helped support Washington Senate Bill 5452. That became effective I think in July. Yeah, at the beginning of July. This is to include impact fee revenues that can fund improvements to bicycle and pedestrian facilities. So this is a big change because system improvements before were just closely defined as vehicle occupancy improvements. So, having now bicycle and pedestrians as part of our system is great for this. This really helps to support completion of maybe sidewalks and bicycle lanes through the city that can now be supported through impact fee revenues and would need to be adopted by the city council. And then we'll discuss concurrency and what that means. And as it's a requirement of state law, I'll quickly explain in simplest terms. It means measuring. It's for measuring to determine if the transportation network is adequate to accommodate the growth that Redmond 2050 anticipates. So with that, some of the next steps, we'll be working on developing an interactive project map of those TFP project lists, similar to what you'd seen on this interactive CIP project list when you were working through the last budget process. That seemed pretty effective. And then, again, scheduling those meetings along with Redmond 2050 with the Planning Commission and City Council next year.
All right, so now I'm going to provide you a quick update of the downtown parking management strategic implementation plan and where we are with this right now. In 2020, the downtown parking management strategic plan implementation plan was adopted. The strategies in the plan fall into short, mid, and long-term strategies. And the time-limited on-street parking is one of the short-term strategies. So we will be implementing a change with this in January of 2024. So all time-limited on-street parking spaces will shift to a 2-hour limit for citywide consistency. Time-limited parking will change to 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday. In addition, parking enforcement will no longer issue warnings. Vehicles in violation of on-street parking restrictions will be ticketed. These changes will go into effect January 1st of 2024. The current budget includes updating the existing contract for these changes in response to city efforts to ensure safe and efficient management of on-street parking resources in downtown. The time limits for on-street parking in downtown Redmond and the Redmond Central Connector public parking lot will be changing to better maximize access to on-street parking for local businesses and visitors. The community engagement plan begins tomorrow. We will begin distributing information cards to warning and ticket recipients, and they will look like this. So if you receive a warning currently, you would get this pink card, and it tells you why you received a warning and then gives you an update on the changes with the link to the website with the information. And then if you receive a ticket, you would receive this yellow card, which just gives you the information about the upcoming changes on January 1st. And then we will also be doing our city Redmond parking page will be updated with the new information. We'll also have messaging included in the fall winter focus. We'll have e-news information, social media posts, our stories, and we will have this information included with the mailings that go out to anyone that purchases a monthly permit. So that's where we are right now.
Okay, so that's a lot of update. So the next update will be it'll be coming. We talked a little bit about the TFP will be the next highlight, and a little bit more about the bicycle design guide. And we will probably be giving you more update on the SS4A work and kick off a little bit more of the public engagement processes. So, and we will probably come back if we get the feedback today on the project to apply for the safety grant, the state city safety grant. So with that, I will kick off any questions on where to start.
Thank you. Questions from council members? Councilmember Anderson.
Just clarifying, so you need permission from council to apply for a grant? Not just accept the money? Really? What is the purpose of that permission granting process?
Is this because we're setting a course?
Or because it's a new project, something not in the budget?
I was going to ask Vanjie about that afterwards. Actually, we, as a general rule, go to governance, which is an internal committee meeting, to talk about whether we can apply for grants. And the purpose of doing that is to ensure that the grants that we're applying for are consistent with the highest prioritized CIP projects, or the projects that have a high priority for obtaining grants in the out years and that they're on the CIP. And so it's a mechanism for us to meet as a group across the city, functional areas, to determine that that grant is worthwhile at that point in time, and whether that we anticipate into the future we'll have matching funds if those are required. So it doesn't actually require a request to the council to apply for a grant, but ultimately you would have to come back later. We would, once the grant, if we receive the grant, we would have to come back later and have the council approve it for its receipt into the budget.
Fantastic. Apply for as many grants as you wish.
Yes, I
Thank you.
apologize. That was a rewording of my,
Yes, I would say we're always very supportive of applying for grants and receiving grants. I will go to Councilmember Stewart, then Council Vice President Kritzer, then Councilmember Fields.
Thank you. And just to pick up.
Can you fix your microphone? We can barely hear you.
Excuse me.
There it is.
Thank you. Just to pick up where we left off on the funding. Thank you for the clarification. And to be clear, also, this is a single grant or a bucket of grants
No,
that the program.
there's one grant, it's the City Safety Grant Program with WashDOT that has, it's in January. So what we want to do is, with this bundle of projects that we have given you and what we hear today, we will come up with the best possible candidate to ask for funding. Usually it's the way the grant application is we come up with like a prioritization of list of projects. And the last time I applied for this grant is they come out and visit the sites and then provide how much they can fund based on the quality of project ask.
Great. I think it had been a little unclear before, but so having you restate it is excellent. And obviously, we would want to, and as you said, we will trust in you that you all understand the funding landscape to put the best candidate forward, like the best package forward. On that, then, is this the point in time where we're going to talk about some specific projects? I did have a couple questions.
Yes, we're open for questions from anyone right now.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Okay, so my second question, if I may, is about 156th, and in particular, regarding the possibility that it could be a pilot project for flipping the bike lane. And we have the cycle track there. So I was just wondering if I could get a little more clarity on what that possible pilot means and what it means in relation to the cycle track that's been going in.
When you say 156, could you clarify a location
156.
or provide
Northeast.
which map you're looking at?
Sure. I am looking at page 47.
I apologize, Councilmember Stewart. We provided
No,
a
that's
lot of
okay.
maps.
I very much understand that. So that page 47 has the map with the candidate locations for flipping on-street parking and bike lanes include 156th Avenue Northeast.
Do you have a map number? Oh, okay.
Yeah, what's the map number on that? Or you could alternatively share your screen if you have it open.
I'm on page 47 of the plan, and I can share my screen if the current screen being shared is taken down.
Can we take down the screen share? Thank you. There we go. Thank you.
Do you want to take it?
Yeah, so was the question regarding kind of what would happen on 156th in this scenario?
Yes. So
Okay.
candidate locations for flipping on-street parking and bike lanes include this street. And that is the same street where a cycle track has been going in. So I'm curious about where the cycle track is, and then the possibility that maybe is this like possibly supplanting or replacing the work of the cycle track? I'd just like to understand a little bit more about what that candidacy is aiming toward.
So our cycle track only goes up to 40th, our project that we're actually constructing right now. And I can't actually see the map right now. Does it go
Sorry.
beyond
It
40?
goes beyond way beyond.
It's
Yes,
page 10
so-
of attachment C, if that helps.
So
Yeah,
this
so north of 40th, we actually have a grant we don't have a project yet, but we need to do more than that north of there. So this is to do north.
Okay, so my concern, sorry this has become so difficult. My concern, just like writ large, had been making sure that the potential projects aren't in conflict of resources we already have committed.
Oh, yes.
And it sounds to me like this is actually just a case of maybe the green line shouldn't actually be as long on this particular page.
Oh, okay.
Would that be fair?
I get it. It's an edit, a suggested edit. Could I click?
I don't know if it needs to be an edit. It caused me to wonder about duplication of resources in an effort where we have a potential for a few more resources. And so just wanting to make sure, we're stretching the resources as far as we can.
No, this is a great suggestion, Councilmember
Okay.
Stewart.
Yeah, I don't think there's any
Apologize.
intention of like duplicating resources, especially with something so new as the cycle track on 156. So I think these projects would be in addition to anything that's currently under construction.
Go ahead.
And also, just to let you know, the grant funding that's up ahead with WASDOT, you see a whole corridor there. Again, these projects that are able to be applied for through grants are, they're not going to be the mile-long projects. They're going to help supplement the work that's already going on, providing those missing gaps. I think we kind of call it that low-hanging fruit projects where we can fast implementation and low cost.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Council Vice President Kritzer.
Thank you, and thanks for this robust presentation. I have questions on multiple parts. I think since we're on the first part, I'll ask some questions, and then maybe I'll raise my hand again after some other people speak. So in terms of what I think you're asking us for guidance on, in terms of the local road safety plan projects, I think for me, some of the ones that are most compelling are around adding pedestrian crossings at high demand locations, kind of, places where we need them, that we don't have them now, and it's something I hear about a lot, and especially being able to make that access to transit a little better, knowing we're going to hopefully be getting more if that's what we're incentivizing. As well as, I think, some of the improvements to bike lanes, so the enhanced bike lane protection, bike lane relocation, and I guess with the pedestrian crossings, I think if I can pick even more, I mean, I want them all, but I think improving the visibility and signage for those crossings, I guess those would be kind of some of the highest priority for me. In particular, I do think on bike lanes, the one that's along Redmond Way of the bike lane relocation, I think is really critical, because that's going to be, people, hopefully we can connect people in that corridor into light rail, be promoting using that multimodal transportation in and out, but it is going to be a very busy area, and obviously we're building a lot of transportation infrastructure in there, so making lower levels of traffic stress would be good in that. I guess one question that I did have for you, well, actually two questions. One is, I thought when we discussed this, and this may be also a question Council President Forsyth has, I thought that we had discussed the idea of creating some always walk locations. Is that envisioned in here? I couldn't quite tell from actually reading through it.
There we go. Mic's on? Okay. Yes, that is. And that's in the, let me look at my boxes here. The signalized crosswalk improvements and signage. So that includes doing all like kind of ped scramble or all-way pedestrian crossings at locations that are really specific to areas that, such as like downtown Redmond, have high non-motorized usage, so high ped volumes, high bicycle volumes. And we really want to focus those at potentially even at certain times of day when those volumes are high, because the drawback is when you're giving lots of time to people crossing the road, then that can also create congestion of vehicles waiting to continue as they're stopped at the intersection. So we'd want to make sure that we're implementing those in the right locations that best fit those projects, which are areas of really high pedestrian usage, especially at peak times during the day.
That's great. And yeah, I think I really support that. I think places where if we're thinking about prioritizing doing projects that really get at some of that highest usage and where you can make pedestrians or cyclists really feel that higher level of comfort, that's where our community is really going to see and feel that value. I know actually when we recently put in some crosswalks in the Overlake neighborhood near Astaire Park area, I heard from multiple residents about it and about how it kind of changed the experience walking around there. So I do think that when we add those types of things, and especially in our downtown, we call it a pedestrian zone, but actually, creating those spaces where pedestrians can get around and it feels like a pedestrian zone, I think would be really key. Only one other question on a specific intersection that I'm curious to get your thoughts on. One area I've gotten a lot of feedback on over the years is the intersection around 85th and 154th, that the road that you take up and then you turn right to get right over here into City Hall. And just a lot of people on that road, people drive probably 20 miles per hour over the speed limit regularly on that road, and then they take a really sharp turn on to 85th a lot of the time. And a lot of just concern about that intersection. I saw that was proposed for higher visibility crosswalk markings, but I am wondering whether there's anything else that was considered at that intersection, because I feel like one of the biggest issues is people needing to slow down before they even take that turn. They know there's a crosswalk there, but they don't always take a look at it,
I'll put in a plug for the citywide city limit study here. Just
the same thing.
I have been having some great conversations with Paul Cho, our traffic engineer for the city, how the citywide speed limit study is just taking a comprehensive look at all our arterials and what speed they should be, the majority of vehicles should be traveling. And from that study, we can then take a look at what we can do if they, for example, I'm just giving an example, if the 85th percentile speed, meaning the majority of the vehicles are traveling currently at that speed, if they are not traveling anywhere close to the speed that we want them to, then we should be coming up with a plan that means an infrastructure project, because there's a gap there of people are feeling like they intuitively should be driving at a different speed, and that's probably why they're driving at a different speed.
Interesting. One other one that I would say then we should look at in that project is the 104th going down to Avondale. I feel like that one, people drive at a very different speed than it is speed limited for. So that's very interesting. Thanks for explaining some more about that study.
Thank you. Councilmember Fields.
Thank you, Council President. Okay, so I, as I look at this chart, LRSP project summary, and think about some of the comments of the last 2 or 3 council members, it occurs to me that this is another opportunity for the city to do something that I suggested on mental health response and a few years ago, which is a mapping of our expectation and benefits, because a lot of times these individual projects are much more enhanced in their success and benefits when one of the other related projects is done in advance of it. For example, you guys just talked about automated speed enforcement. That's going to make people really appreciate and feel, as you put it, comfortable with some of the infrastructure around safer bicycles. So none of these things are independent silos. They all impact one another. And there is a real plus in doing this benefits mapping and recognizing that only Council Member Forsyth even has a clue as to what I'm talking about, because she helped me with the previous one. My question is this: are you willing to accept a council member's help, i.e. me, in integrating some of these projects in from a benefits perspective? And it's a lot of time and effort on my part, and will not get my feelings hurt if you say, no, we got this, council member. But if you do see an advantage here of actually taking these in sort of a timing sequence, I would be more than happy to work with you. And that is my question.
I'm not opposed to it, Councilmember Fields. It's just how much time that would take, that we would need to come up with a plan to apply. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't stop whether we apply for a grant in January or not. I'd like to remind you and the council that we have this Safer Streets for All action plan that we are also, we could also build that mapping of the benefits also into that work too. And we're not done with this work as well.
No, and there's no interference or obstruction to getting grants. As a matter of fact, the city council did in fact provide in the budget of $500,000 for this type of planning work, or was it 250? I can't remember. But my point is, you're asking us for weighing in on priorities. And I think we would get a lot better sense of what that means in scheduling priorities or the timing of some of this work if we understood the relationships between them. And I think it does take a certain amount of time, and it will be an investment of time, but I think the payoff is tremendous on the other side. And I would not expect it would, I know your priority tonight is to set this up so that we get the capacity and the capabilities and the mechanisms in place to solicit funding. And I'm all about that and I'm all for it. But I wanted to ask that question. I could call you on the phone and ask you, but I want this on the record that this is an opportunity to actually treat this as what it is a very complex project with a lot of interrelationships. And the more we can understand those relationships, the better we can achieve success in a quicker time frame. So you don't need to answer me tonight. You can email me, but I'm perfectly willing to lend as much time as it takes to help get that done and then have council review it and decide if it makes sense or if it's a tool. But I really strongly believe that there's an opportunity here to improve our understanding of what you're trying to accomplish.
Well, Councilmember Fields, I know how passionate you are about safety, and I will definitely be willing to have a conversation with you. And there is a lot more projects, so we can definitely talk. There is more projects to come. I would just also like to. There are more projects involved with the Safer Streets for All action plan that we are continuing to work on. But we can definitely talk after this.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I would be happy to be part of that conversation, since the initial benefits realization mapping conversation that Councilmember Fields and I had a couple years ago, I was part of that, and we could even just present to you what we.
Yeah, because I have no idea what that is.
Yeah,
So
it's pretty cool, and I have a feeling that on some level you are doing that work, but putting it into paper and being able to see it in one big plan is actually really empowering and really cool. So I'm going to jump in with my questions, and then we'll go around for round two. On this particular slide, the automated speed enforcement, I have a lot of questions on that one, and I know it's not something that we're looking to act on right now. But my main concerns are the equity of it, and there's been some stories that I've read of companies that manage these that will shorten the time of a yellow light to try to trap people and try to get more tickets. And there's been some horror stories that I've read.
I can also, we had sensed that our consultant had sensed that from our at 2PW. That's part of what we wanted to talk about today. If council feels strongly about this too, we can take it out of the plan. I'll just put that out there also.
Okay. I know I have a feeling we're a bit divided on it, and other people can definitely weigh in, but I do have concerns, so I will just leave it there for now. Wanted to ask about the bike lane relocation on Redmond Way in Avondale. Would that include removal? Those both have medians with really prominent trees. Would that include maintaining those trees, removal of those trees? How does that look to you all? Like, what is the actual implementation of that? Because I know those are both areas that we would want to protect those trees and protect what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely want to protect those trees. I don't think that would necessarily change the overall,
We'd be shortening the lane to add buffered bike lane.
Yes. And that would kind of in turn, that sort of narrowing effect of the roadway would also help with reduced vehicle speed. So that kind of goes back to the conversation that Vanjie was mentioning about the citywide speed limit study for if there's areas with high speeds, with folks traveling much higher than the posted speed, that you want people to feel like they should drive slower. So keeping those trees present, narrowing those lanes, having those bicycle facilities, be very present and safe and buffered, are all features that help people feel like they need to be driving slower.
That was my gut, but I wanted to make sure I asked the question because I know it will come up. And then we had talked about last time about the high friction treatments. I was interested in hearing more about that tonight and what the impacts on bicycles are for that. Because I know a lot of the times, anytime you add something to the street, it becomes an obstacle instead of helpful.
Yeah, and we were speaking with that with Brett, our consultant, after last week's meeting as well. And one thing that he mentioned is that those high friction surface treatments are really only intended for vehicles, and that it's very easy to limit those to just the vehicle travel lane. So that would not be something that would interfere with bicycles. You can just apply that to just the travel lane, and bikes can continue on.
Do you know if that has a different coloration so that if a bike is in the travel lane that they'll know it's a difference, or no?
I believe that's possible. That's a
We can
that's a
follow
good
up on
question. Yeah, we can follow up on that. Yeah.
And then moving to the parking topic. So I heard you say that the grace period is basically ending in January, correct? And are those areas already signed as 2-hour parking?
Yes, it's just the downtown area with
Okay.
the time-limited parking.
Okay. And this isn't including any paid parking. This is just
Nope.
you get 2 hours free street parking. After that, you will get a ticket.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
We will still have the monthly permits where there are areas where you can park
Right.
longer than the posted time limit if you have the permit. But right now, we have 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, some 15 minutes, some 30 minutes. So everything will be 2 hour, just in downtown across the board. So we're not adding any new areas or taking anything away. We're just making it all 2 hour across the board.
So the areas north of here that are 3-hour parking will convert to 2. The areas we've already heard community complaints about.
Yeah, all the areas will change to 2 hours.
Interesting. Okay. Not sure how I feel about that one since we've already heard a lot of complaints about from our residents that live just north of here and the parking situation there. Okay. And then back on that honeycomb slide, I'd be interested to know if we're going to be talking about the parking plan in conjunction with the transit plan. I know we're not talking about the transit plan right now, but they definitely have, and this is where the benefit mapping that Councilmember Fields talked about, how do those weave together? Where will those conversations overlap?
The transit strategic plan?
Yep.
The transit the transit strategic plan is sort of a little bit on the low end of the schema, because transit, the city doesn't control a lot of
Right.
where so I was focusing on what we had control over first. So I did have, on one of their previous study sessions, I had a little bit more of the time scale of everything. We will be doing the ADA transition. Actually, we don't have any of the transit strategic plan on the next slide with the timeline. So we're doing the pedestrian system and the ADA transition plan. So if we had included a little bit more down, it would eventually include the transit plan and the street.
So will those conversations overlap though, since parking is impacted, transit is impacted by each other? Like we're going to have a parking issue when light rail is here, and how we're planning and preparing for that is, I guess, the core of my question.
I can see the transit plan, the way the current TMP reads is how we prepare for light rail coming. And the way I have been envisioning the new TMP is how we can get more service, as in bus service. I hadn't thought about how it overlapped with downtown parking exactly, because getting new service with Metro is a very challenging conversation. So the opportunity is getting flexible services, because fixed route is it's going to be very, very challenging.
Yeah.
So getting new routes, which would take, say, parking, is very, very, it's going to be a very small chance that's going to be affected.
Okay. I think I would just encourage that we look at what those impacts are.
But we can.
Yeah, that we can, and so we're planning, because we know we've already heard from the management at RTC that what they're looking at doing for potentially people parking there when light rail opens, and how we're looking at maybe even our surface lot. People are probably going to park there, the blue and yellow lot. Just understanding what those impacts are I think is,
Oh, I see. The parking availability of people getting to the light rail.
Yes.
And so this is where, this is actually why, if you go back to the honeycomb slide, this is why we're trying to go all in on the active transportation plan
Right.
of creating the systems of people using the bicycle facilities and being able to walk. If that's actually, I'll bring us back a little bit to the routes to rails, public engagement. How are people getting to said light rail stations? If you remember, we were asking people, how are you going to get to the light rail stations if you didn't drive? And that is why, with the Safer Streets for All action plan, we're going to build on the feedback that we heard. A lot of what we heard, and it differed amongst the 4 different stations. Downtown, actually, people felt the more safe walking. It was actually Marimore was a station that people didn't know how they felt more safe. They expect to be able to drive. So that is why we had the pilot projects that we're going to be putting at the crossing at 70th that we're going to try to do, and 168th, I believe that's the intersection. So there's a lot of 166, and a lot of the improvements that people will need to feel safer cost a lot of money, but what we're trying to do is, are there smaller investments that we can do to get them a little bit closer? But that's what we're trying to do with all these pieces of work.
right. And yet still planning for those bigger investments down.
Yeah, later, but those are bigger,
Yes.
big investments.
Understood. Okay, thank you. And then finally, I'll just say, thank you for all the work that I know you all did and the conversation that we all had around the impact fees and the Senate Bill 5452. I know that a lot of that came out of the conversations that we have here in this room. And the fact that you guys took that and ran with that, and now that is something that the entire state can benefit from, is just absolutely incredible. So just wanted to say thank you for that. Any other questions? Councilmember Anderson.
So I've got one from right field for you. The local road safety plan just struck me as we were talking a little bit about the benefits realization. I'm curious if we've explored the link of a potential outcome for reduction in our insurance rates for general liability throughout the city. Just curious on that. And then additionally, on the flip side, what the need might look like for enforcement and traffic control. So bigger questions. Will the local road safety plan or the funding that we put toward this help us solve either of those 2 problems?
I've never heard the one about insurance, so that's a good one. We'll have to follow up with that one.
Thank you. And then on the policing enforcement side as well.
With traffic calming, I have a more philosophical way to answer that one.
Bring it on.
Well, I don't know if you know, I have a long history with traffic calming projects, so that I'd like to think that well-chosen traffic calming projects are self-enforcing. But that's why you have to choose them wisely.
The police department is right here.
Well,
that would reduce their revenue, so I just wanted to.
Well, but that I had really good, relationship with the police department in the city I worked in. So, but that's why you have really good policies on when and where you do and don't put in traffic calming.
Fantastic. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councilmember Carson.
Thank you. And most of the revenue from a ticket goes to the court system, not to the police department. So that's it's not really a revenue generation machine. So I also have concerns about the automated thing, which we talked about before. And I did read the comments or the responses, and I'm satisfied with all but that one, I guess, because I just don't think it's going to work. but, you know, I can always be proven wrong. But I did want to go back to another thing that Council President Forsyth mentioned, which was about the textured, what's it called?
The textured pavement.
The high friction, yeah. So I'm curious about, so bicycles is a good one, but motorcycles also, it can be problematic. I've been on motorcycle trips where the center line has that, they basically groove it out so that, you know, if you fall asleep and go over the center line, it kind of jolts you awake, which is great for a car, but it's actually pretty difficult for a motorcycle in certain conditions. So I would just, I don't know what it looks like. I've never actually seen it, but just be mindful of that. And kind of follow on to that is we've been talking about making our crosswalks more visible, not just the two lines that go across. So the piano keys kind of version. And this I brought up many years ago, and I hope we're still doing it, but I'm not certain that we are. And that is using texturing in the vinyl, because when you hit that with even just dew on the ground on a motorcycle, you've only got two wheels. If you slip, you're probably going down. And so making sure that and it actually happened to me once, coming off of 520, turning right onto 51st. And, you know, I had the green, so I was just turning it probably 20 miles, maybe not even 20 miles an hour. And I hit the piano keys that went across there, and I just about went down. And yeah, because it was just slightly slippery. They're really slippery to begin with, and when you add water to them, they just are terrible. So I hope we're still doing that. If not, we really should be making sure that we are, because I wouldn't want to see us convert a bunch of these and then have a lot of bicycle and motorcycle accidents that are just because they lose traction and they only have two wheels. So
I can double check our policies, but I know that there are materials that we can use.
oh no, there definitely
So-
are. We've employed them. I just want to make sure we're still doing that. So great, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Stewart, and then Council Vice President Kritzer.
Thank you. I just wanted to, that last topic that we were on with the parking, I just wanted to recognize that quickly. Thank you so much for the listing of the many contacts and communication methods that are taking place in order to help folks feel really prepared. I'm hoping as well that because there was so much public engagement on this document prior to the council unanimously passing it in 2020, that this is going to serve as a bit of a reminder of something that folks kind of knew was coming. And so thank you for helping us with that and staying on track with that. Parking has been a hot topic of late, and will take some getting used to. Changes always do, but I just really appreciate all your work you're doing to make sure that the communication is as saturated as it can be in all the city channels, and maybe there's a role for council to help in being an ambassador for that news as well. So thank you.
Council Vice President Kritzer.
I have a couple questions. I'll start with parking since we're on the topic. It mentions that there's going to be a change to the Redmond Central Connector parking lot. Can you clarify what that's going to be?
Yeah, so it'll be, the hours will be the same as on-street. So currently, on-street hours are 9 to 5, and then the Redmond Central Connector lot is 9 to 7, Monday through Friday, and then on-street is Monday through Friday. So all of it will change. So it'll be Monday through Saturday, 9 to 9. So it'll be consistent across the board. So if you go to the Redmond Central Connector lot, it'll be the same hours and days as it is on the street.
We're talking about the Sky lot, the painted
Yes.
lot. So that's usually first hour free, and then you pay after that, right? Is that
I
still
think
going to
it's
be the
2
same? Or
hours.
it's first 2
The
hours?
first 2 hours are free, and then it's $1 an hour for each hour after that.
Well, that'll be the same.
That's
It's
not
just
changing, correct.
The hours in which
Right.
that is enforced will change.
Correct.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. And I agree with the previous comment that I think the communication about it is going to be key, because we're definitely going to hear about it as people start to get more tickets or don't know about some of the changes and don't look at the signs. But takes time to make these changes. And I think communicating out, especially around it, that so many of the goals that I remember back when we approved this plan that we talked about is getting people to circulate through parking. So when you're looking for parking in downtown, that more parking will be available because people won't be leaving their cars there for so long, is the goal. It's really to solve the issue when people say, I can't find a parking spot in downtown Redmond. Now you'll find more parking spots. So I think that's helpful to explain that logic, because it may not be the first thing that comes to mind for people, and thanks for the work on that. One quick follow-up on the transit strategic plan and the flexible transit. Was trying to read through what you just said there. I remember previously in the budget process, you actually had mentioned when we were talking about this, that we would need a transit strategic plan in order to make the case to King County Metro that we should get that flexible transit.
It helps.
Can we start those conversations anyway without it? Or,
Oh, sure. I mean, well, there's a lot of cities that actually have a need right now, that have the same need as we do, that we've, Francesca staffs a lot of our committee meetings, the regional committee meetings with transit. There are a lot of the, Redmond, Sammamish, Issaquah, Duval, they feel the same ways of the edges of the transit systems. The need of the service, the funding for the services are just limited because the Metro has to fund the whole region. And for people to feel a consistent, dependable system requires a lot of money. And I can't tell you what all the challenges are right now, so.
I understand. I guess the only piece I would say is I would hate for us to not be further up in line to be one of the cities to get a more robust flex transit and work with Metro on that, especially given the needs we'll have with light rail coming, because we put the transit strategic plan later in the process.
Oh, no, we're on target. I mean, well, that's the thing. We have a good base, but a lot of other cities don't have light rail coming. So, to their city. But we are on target to start the transit strategic plan. It's just that we have a lot of other work to be doing.
Sounds good. And then two other quick comments, if that's all right. One is, I just, on the traffic cameras, I think I am interested in it. I will say as a short note is where I live right near one of the areas that was put on the map near a lot of the schools. And sometimes our wonderful police will have an officer sit with their car right in the middle of the road where there's kind of the divider between the road, right next to the school. And I notice as people drive, they drive at such different speeds when that car is sitting right there versus when that car isn't sitting there. And so I do wonder, if you had a camera there, would it serve the same purpose and you wouldn't need an officer to come every so often and just sit there to remind people, yep, this is a place where you could get a ticket if you don't drive the speed limit, especially around our school zones. So I do wonder about that. I will say I think it's a deeper conversation for us to discuss. So in terms of all the different options that you have on there, I think most of the others, it seems like if we had enough money, we probably could all get on board with most of these things. Probably that one is more of like really a policy discussion where even if we had enough money, I don't know if our council all has that same agreement. So I would be okay if we wanted to take a pause on that discussion and have it be like its own separate discussion.
Conversation.
Giving you that that direction, although I would be interested in going deeper on it, looking at the data, kind of all the questions coming about, but I don't want to slow down the work on any of the other pieces, having that discussion. And then last thing, I had a question about the technology. So in terms of I assume adaptive signals is part of the technology that you're looking at, or I hope so. Yeah, I was just curious, kind of what are some of the solutions that you're talking about of technology that are bubbling to the top?
With adaptive signals in particular, I'm interested in myself for the city, bringing in that near miss data for planning and our traffic operations folks. That's a technology that's there today, and we don't have it. We're exploring. Like with our NLC Capstone project, we're exploring having access to those kind of technologies. And so, I think with the adaptive signals, and I don't want to throw the smart city term out there, but just getting our transportation master plan to a place where it can be adaptive to emerging technologies is where I'd like to see.
Well, and I'll throw it out there, but I do think in terms of there are a lot of really cool things other cities are doing, especially around urban mobility and thinking about, how are we connecting different mobility services to each other and how do we kind of optimize that flow through use of technology. So I just really look forward to what you come back with, what you prioritize at the top, and being able to use what other cities maybe that have a similar setup to us.
You will actually be part of this.
Yeah.
We just have to plan out exactly how to include, since we have some rules of how the city council can be part of our conversation. But our consultant has done this for other agencies, and we have just been very clear that we don't want the TMP to be limiting on the technology, the specific technologies, because the speed of change of technologies is so fast. So what the TMP will say is the why of the outcomes the technologies will support in terms of transportation. That's why the asset management, the recommendations focus on. Our consultant will be leading you all in the visioning process that I think I can tell you guys will love the conversation and probably want to spend hours on. So I think you will love that conversation, but we will do adaptive signals because we already know we're going to be doing adaptive signal projects. So it's to have this document live for at least a decade before we have to update it again.
Great conversation. Thank you all so much. Does anyone else have any other questions, comments? Do you have what you need from us?
Yes, I just wanted to iterate what we wanted to hear was the feedback on the local road safety plan. I think we got some good feedback today, and also a note, we are very well aware that parking is a hot topic, so we wanted this is a light touch. There's a lot to do. Yeah. We will be updating the parking plan because unfortunately a pandemic happened before it could really be implemented, so there's going to be more public engagement on that.
Thank you. Seeing nothing else, I think we can close out this item. Thank you all so much. Appreciate you all. All right, that brings us to our last item, which is council talk time. Does anyone have anything for council talk time tonight? I can share that Councilmember Fields and Khan and I have been working on a letter to the NTSB, which we are hoping to get to you all for a talk time. We're hoping to use the Hopper process to submit for a talk time, our last talk time of the year, which will be in 2 weeks. That came out of the conversations we had on similar nights like tonight, where we were talking about safety issues, and it just wanted to make sure that we try to tie that off before the end of the year. So we'll be hopefully looking for your support on that letter, sending that to the NTSB. Councilmember Carson?
So what's the kind of, can you share the nature of?
It's basically about National Transportation Safety Board, yes. So, sorry, I hate acronyms and I just did that. So when we were prior talking about Councilmember Fields and Councilmember Khan going to the conference they attended, there was the topic of reaching out to the NTSB to talk about what we're doing locally for road safety and what that they can do to promote road safety. And one of the big issues is safety features in large vehicles and safety features that are standard in European vehicles but not standard in American vehicles. So that's in there. And then there's some other things about, children like that can't be seen in front of large trucks because trucks have gotten so much bigger. So not to give everything away, but that is currently being worked on and will hopefully be brought forward to you all soon. And then just a reminder that we have the special meeting at 6 o'clock next week. So that will be a long evening, but I know we'll have a lot of good questions. And Councilmember Stewart.
Hi, thank you. And I do apologize that I could not be in person with you all today. I am kind of getting caught up on a few things after having been sick. And so two like housekeeping things. Shout out to Director Marchand, the technology asset replacement survey. It's in our inboxes and it's due in a few days and it takes 10 seconds. So that if you haven't done that yet, it might still be in your inbox. And then, of course, it's open season or whatever for HR. So we all have those forms as well to figure out. So I don't know, just friend of colleague to colleague, like, oh, yeah, we have these things. And I have in the past gotten one of those terrible, like, the deadline passed 24 hours ago. And where are you? And it must feel awful to the staff. So anyway, we have those two things in the hopper for each of us. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Carson, did you have one?
I was just going to ask about next week in terms of, so we kind of have back-to-back meetings.
We do.
Was there a plan for
dinner?
For dinner?
Yes,
Yeah,
there is a link in your inbox to order food for
terrific.
The 6 o'clock meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Okay, seeing nothing. That brings us to the end of our agenda, and we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.